Listen, I'm going to hold my hands up on this one because I used to give the opposite advice when it came to decluttering, but I realize now I was wrong, because while this advice may seem counterintuitive, I actually think it might be kind of genius. Let's go. Hey, how's it going? It's Laura, and a question that I get a lot is what to do with stuff that you're not sure about. You know, usually around clothes, maybe they don't fit you, you're just not sure about them, you're not sure if they're your style, or when it comes to stuff that you think your kids, your grandkids might want, or you know, various different things like that that you're not currently using but you think you might use in the future. What do you do with that stuff? Now, the advice I used to give, and I'm sure you have heard this everywhere, is very common advice. It's to box up the stuff. You know, put it all in a box, in a tote, in a plastic tub, whatever, and maybe write a date on it, put it in your calendar. It could be 6 months from now, let's say, and set a reminder for yourself, and then take that box, take that plastic tote and push it out of the way. Put it somewhere where you're not going to see it for that time, and then when the deadline comes, if you have not used that stuff or wanted that stuff, or maybe you've even completely forgotten about that stuff, you should just go ahead and donate that box. I would like to apologize unreservedly if you have ever asked me about this and that is the advice I have given you, because it's wrong. It's terrible advice, I think, now with experience and stuff, because I don't think anybody, I've never heard of anybody just donating a box without even looking inside it, just, you know, handing it over. I don't think that happens. And you're like, yeah, that's great, Laura, thanks a lot for that, but what should I be doing instead? That's a great question. Let me give you my new answer. Do not box things up and put them out of the way. And I'll tell you why. And I discovered this, I rediscover it every time I go through my sentimental stuff, for example, or when I kind of pull out stuff that I haven't seen in a while. Actually, if you saw a recent video of mine where I talked about the $10 bill that has sentimental value to me, if you haven't seen that video, I will link it up here for you. But the $10 bill, when I went looking for that video, I discovered it in a box of other things that I had forgotten about, and I opened that box. I was like, whoa, all this stuff that had completely escaped my memory, and now here it all is, looking lovely and new and exciting. I'm sure you have experienced that too, or you've come across something that you haven't seen in a while, and all of a sudden it's like discovering hidden, buried treasure. Like, it's really novel and new, and you know, it has that excitement value all over again. It's kind of like, you know, when a kid hasn't played with a toy in a long time, you know, maybe you put it out of the way, maybe you rotate your toys or something, and your kid sees a toy that they haven't seen in a while, and all of a sudden it feels like a brand new toy. And that's the problem with, you know, putting things out of sight for a long time. When you pull them out, then they're going to feel a little bit more special, a little bit more rare. It's kind of like things that are, you know, limited edition, or they are rare, or there's like a limited amount of them. Suddenly you feel compelled to own or hold on to that thing, even if you never use it, even if you don't really want it. The fact that it is limited edition, the fact that you don't see it all that often, increases its perceived value. Logic just goes right out the window. It doesn't matter if you haven't worn that item of clothing in like 5 years. It doesn't matter if you haven't seen that random thing, that $10 bill in like a decade. All of a sudden, when you pull it out into the light, it holds special value to you. And I've talked about this when I do talk about sentimental stuff, that things you kind of like pull out into the light, when they're boxed away, when things are boxed away, it kind of imparts this mystical value to them, you know, that they're special because you have saved them for this long. And then when you pull them out, it's, you know, you're taking that trip down memory lane. There's all this emotion attached to it. It takes on this air of reverence because it has been boxed up and saved. You know, it must be special. Again, logic, rationality, nowhere to be seen. Things that you do not see all that often feel a lot more exciting to you. So instead, here's what I suggest you do. You put it somewhere where you are going to see it all of the time, particularly if it's going to be in a kind of an awkward place. And I also want you to interact with it. I want you to engage with it, because here's the thing, like let's say towels, random example, towels that are hung up, you don't really notice. Towels that are left lying on the floor, you notice. Things that you see all of the time don't have that rare, special value. So put them kind of front and center where you're always going to see them and where they're going to lose that kind of special, magical power. And I also say to interact and engage with them, because sometimes, you know, we become blind to things that we see every single day, and we've all kind of experienced this. It's even like that game, you know, where, you know, like certain items are laid out in front of you and then you turn away, something's taken away and you have to try and guess what it is. Sometimes you don't even notice that something is gone, and other times you have no idea. And sometimes, like let's say you walk into a room, you might know that something is different, but you can't quite put your finger on what it is. And I think that's true for kind of like maybe the artwork, stuff that's hung up on our walls, or the furniture. We get so used to seeing it that our brains just expect it, and therefore we don't notice it anymore. What we do notice is the new stuff, the stuff that has changed or wasn't there before. We notice the stuff like the towels that is suddenly in our way. So by putting it somewhere where it's kind of very visible, where it might even be like awkward for you, where you're tripping over it or have to move around it, and by interacting and engaging with it, you're taking that shine off the item. And particularly with interacting, what I would say with interacting and engaging with something, like try and almost force yourself to use that item. So with the example of clothing, for example, maybe you've got a particular item of clothing, you're really not sure about it, put it on every single morning. Like when you get up, when you're getting dressed, put it on, even if you immediately take it off and put on something else. But by forcing yourself to put it on every single morning and make a decision on it, you will quickly decide whether or not you love that thing or whether you loathe it. Same with, let's say, a kitchen gadget. Maybe you're really not sure if you use it all that often. Maybe you're not sure if you like it. Maybe you're not sure that you need to keep it. Force yourself to use it at least once a week. Force yourself to make something with it. You're very quickly going to make a decision, instead of, you know, something that has been put out of sight that you're not interacting with, that you then pull out and you think, ooh, shiny new thing. The reality is that one of two things is going to happen. And I actually came across this when I was listening to an interview that Marie Kondo did about gifts. You know, what should you do with gifts that you receive that you don't really want? And I think we've all been there. So I was really interested to hear her answer on it. And what she said actually really surprised me, because I was expecting her to say, well, look, if it doesn't spark joy, you should get rid of it, you know, accept it in the manner in which it was given to you, like it was given to you as a gift, accept the thought, you know, and, you know, give gratitude for it, but realize then that it is yours to do whatever you want with. And that is like very common advice, again, out there. But her answer did surprise me, because what she said was, use that gift. Interact with it. If it's, you know, like, I don't know, like a set of candlesticks, I don't know, that you got that you really don't think fit your style, use them, put some candles in them, put them up on your mantelpiece, on your dining table or whatever, and actually use them. And then if after a while you realize, you know, that it kind of reaffirms your decision that these don't really fit your style or that you don't really like them, then you will be much more inclined to donate them without or with less guilt, because you know that you've kind of given them the good old college try, you know, and that person has maybe even seen you in the meantime using and interacting with their gift. And I think that's a really lovely idea. Or it might be the opposite. By actually using it and engaging with it, you might decide that actually, after all, this is a useful or beautiful item. You know, keeping something in a box or keeping something in a bag, we don't get that chance to interact with it. We don't get that chance to let it show us what it can do. So by kind of, again, bringing it out into the light of day, making it a part of our normal everyday lives, that is how we decide truly whether we want or need or use or love something. Kind of comes back to the whole philosophy of the KonMari method, which is to focus on what you're keeping instead of what you're getting rid of. But I thought this was really fascinating because, again, it comes back to that idea of, you know, using something, actually using it is going to tell you whether or not you want it in your life, not putting it in a box or keeping it in a bag and just like sliding it off to a corner, because then you don't get any value out of it whatsoever, any like actual everyday value. And by keeping it there, we start to form these emotional attachments, like, oh, that's, and it could be like a good emotion or a bad emotion, quote unquote. You know, that was gifted to me, so I can't get rid of that. You know, I'd feel guilty, or somebody will ask me where that is, or, you know, that thing doesn't quite fit into my lifestyle right now, but maybe my kids might want it. Bring things out into the light of day, make them part of your normal routine, put them out somewhere on your countertops and engage with them, use them on a regular basis, force yourself to make them a part of your everyday life. And that is what is going to make your decision a lot clearer about whether it is clutter or whether it is a keeper. You know, I feel like there are lots of these kind of strange or uncommon pieces of decluttering advice. Like, this is not advice I have heard anyone really giving. So I'm putting it out there. Maybe it's helpful to somebody. I feel like as I go along my decluttering journey, I kind of stumble across some of these little secrets, things that you don't really see anywhere else. And one of them was when it comes to the KonMari method's sparks joy idea. I could not get this whole kind of like click point thing straight in my brain, and I know that when I made this video right here kind of exposing the secret to it, I knew that it wasn't anywhere else because I had researched thoroughly beforehand, like before I made this video, and it was only kind of by accident that I personally stumbled across the answer. Yeah, this was another one of those wait a minute moments for me. And let me know if you've ever come across any kind of like counterintuitive advice or advice that you haven't seen anywhere else. And until then, go raibh míle maith agaibh. Agus feici mé sib sigalua. Slán!